It's the Birth Besties. We're sorry about our technical issues, but we are here. And today we wanted to talk about breastfeeding. So we were going to share some of our success stories and some of our struggles and our biggest tips and tricks. So I breastfed twins, and if I can breastfeed twins, I promise that we probably have some tips for you. Absolutely. So I'll let Michaela kick off with some of her breastfeeding stories.
Yeah, I've breastfed 3 kids, not twins, but or triplets, all at very different times. And I had struggles and successes with all of them. So I breastfed each one of my kids for just over a year. And, you know, for something that's supposed to be so natural, it definitely had a steep learning curve for me. I am not a very big woman, and there was struggles that I didn't even know to expect with breastfeeding. So part of that was not because of my size, but just, you know, you don't know what you don't know. So how about you, Crystal?
Right. Well, I have 4 kiddos, and the first one, I was really young, and I didn't even really truly consider breastfeeding because I grew up in the South, and I didn't grow up seeing women breastfeed. So I just kind of went into that pregnancy and said, it's not for me, but I didn't really know much about it. Looking back, I really wish someone had spent time with me because I had this horrible, you know, oversupply. So because I chose not to breastfeed, I was pretty miserable from the beginning. And it took a really long time to dry up. And I experienced mastitis and things like that. But being young and uneducated, I didn't even really know what I was experiencing. So that was my experience the first go around, and the second go around, I of course met you, and we were expecting twins, and Michaela gave me the encouragement to breastfeed. So I breastfed twins from the day they were born until they were 18 months.
Even though the twins were in the NICU, you still...
Even though the twins were in the NICU, I immediately started pumping. Yep. And I pumped every 2-3 hours, and then I realized again that I was experiencing the same thing I did the first time, and I had an oversupply, which is kind of hard to manage. But with some experienced lactation consultants and you and my own research, I realized that I in fact needed to slow things down, and so I used you know, that I increased the time between pumping, and the twins were given my milk in the NICU, and they escaped 2 weeks after they were born, and we went home and I started breastfeeding. But like you said, there is a steep learning curve. Absolutely. Just because this is quote natural does not mean that it's easy. It's you know, riding a bike is quote natural, but we all didn't ride a bike. We crashed many times.
Yeah, exactly. So, my biggest word of advice when you're learning how to breastfeed, whether it be for the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time, whatever, is give yourself grace. And if you feel yourself starting to get tense and stressed out, take a break and hand the baby to dad or somebody else that's there to help you. Take a deep breath, feed yourself, get some water, and try to calm down, and then re-engage after that. Because I would just be like, what's wrong with me? I'm supposed to be able to do this, and why can't I do this? And I'm such a failure. And, you know, it was very stressful in the beginning. And I didn't have anybody in my family that had breastfed. So I didn't have anybody that could show me or tell me or, you know, encourage me in that way. I mean, they were there to support me, but they didn't have any tips or tricks to give me at that point. Crystal, you keep talking, and I'm going to go get my plug. I'll be right back.
Okay. So for me, the thing that, like Michaela said, was so great is just to give yourself grace and realize that the first few weeks are going to be a real struggle. And if you can get past, say, 3 weeks, and I used to just have a goal of like, if I can get through today, if I can get through tomorrow, then you can really kind of get over the hump, as I call it, of nursing, where it really gets easier, and it becomes such a beautiful experience. In the beginning, you're tired, you're sore, you're figuring it out, baby's figuring it out, and so it can be a little overwhelming for a couple of weeks. But the other thing that is absolutely imperative that you have is a supportive provider. So a pediatric provider that is truly supportive of breastfeeding. The reason why I say this is because many providers get focused on weight, and very much it's a weight gain sort of thing. And so you've got to walk in every time and you're feeling this guilt and you're stressed about nursing, and then they're weighing your baby.
Oh my gosh, so true.
There's so much more to a healthy newborn than their weight, and how fast they regain that weight. So are they sleeping well? Are they going to the bathroom? Are they pooping and peeing okay?
Yeah.
Do they seem lethargic, or do they seem like they're thriving and happy? Those are all very, very important indicators of newborn health aside from weight. So a pediatric provider who truly is invested in a mother's nursing success will not focus strictly on weight. So that's very important.
So glad you brought that up, because with each one of my kids, it's very normal for babies to drop 5 to 7% of their weight from the minute they were born. Right. And my babies dropped, all 3 of them dropped a little bit more than that, about a pound. Probably about a pound each. And especially with my 3rd child. So I have already successfully nursed 2 babies, and they're healthy and thriving. And now I'm just gave birth to my 3rd child, and the doctor wants me in every 2 days for a weight check. And I am in tears, and my milk hasn't even come in yet. Right. And I feel like I can't do this, and I'm crying and I'm stressed out. And, it was my 8-year-old son at the time that was like, Mommy, you breastfed both of us. You can do this. It's okay. And I was like, he's so right. I need to go with my gut. I'm stressing out, which is why my milk hasn't come in yet. Right. And I'm not able to rest and take care of myself and take care of my baby, because I'm driving to the hospital every 2 days to get my baby weight checked.
Right.
And, we have small babies. That's my husband and I just have small babies. That's how it is in our family.
Right.
And it's crazy that it took my 8-year-old son to remind me that I can do this. And whereas I didn't have that support from the pediatrician that I was going to. So you are absolutely correct in it's not all about weight. And there's so many other factors to take into consideration when you're breastfeeding.
Well, and let's talk about the fact that there's actually 2 different charts.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really ask your provider what chart they're comparing the weight gain to,
right,
there's a formula chart and there is a breastfeeding chart.
Yep. And the other thing is, my doctor's argument, the pediatrician's argument at the time was, because I would say, well, but all of my babies have done this. And she's like, but not all babies are the same. And that was when my husband was like, exactly. So you're trying to compare our baby to babies all over the country, instead of listening to us and listening to our family, what we've experienced as a family. And, it's just, they can put so much stress on you. And not all providers are like that, but
no,
it does happen, and it's very unnerving.
Absolutely. Not all providers are the same. And the problem is that when you're, just had a baby, you're emotionally, you're tired, you're exhausted,
right,
and you expect these professionals to know best always. And sometimes, like you experienced, you even questioned your ability to breastfeed a 3rd child. Can you imagine if that was your first experience?
I probably wouldn't have continued to breastfeed, to be honest with you, if it was my first experience. Thankfully, with my first experience, I had a lot more supportive people around me, not just my provider, but also my childbirth instructor that lived around the corner. And then we also had a nurse come in that was a lactation consultant and come to the home and give me some, ways to help me through that emotional struggle.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is that's why we talk so much here about support and really finding encouragement. I mean, that's something I do. Just anybody I know, whether they be miles away on friends on Facebook or they're next to me here in Seattle, if they're a new mom and they're breastfeeding, I am literally always available. And I've had people come back and tell me that, they successfully nursed for XYZ days, XYZ months. I mean, I have a friend that lives all the way in Kentucky, and she nursed for 2 years, and she is so sweet and says, like, you answering text messages and messages from me in the middle of the night is what kept me going.
Absolutely.
You have to find that person.
I mean, if we're being real, that's why we started Honest Birth Talk, because we wanted to be able to reach people outside of our local area and be there and provide that support for moms all over the country and eventually all over the world. So we are only, a fingertip away from helping you and helping you achieve your goals and dreams as far as birth and breastfeeding goes.
And so often it's not some magic fix more than it's just someone confidence. To listen and say, I totally get your struggle.
Yep.
It's going to pass. You're going to get through this. Because I think often when you're tired and exhausted and breastfeeding isn't going well in the first couple of weeks, because it's so hard, you're both just learning, that you're like, oh my gosh, there's no way that this is going to work and I'm ready to give up. And because you think that the rest of it is going to be like that. And I can't. Yeah. And I mean, I bottle fed my first, and I can tell you after even nursing twins that once you get past that initial, it is so much easier. You can be anywhere and you're not hauling stuff with you. You can just plop baby on and you're good to go. And they're also very, with baby wearing and things like that, because easy access, baby cries less and baby's just content and happy. And let's talk about frequency of feedings, because I feel like so many people, I got to wake my baby up at 2 hours, or they're nursing too much, they shouldn't be hungry for another hour. And then you think that you're doing it wrong, when actually let's talk about how that's your body's way of experiencing what's coming as a growth spurt.
Well, and, with my first one, I left the hospital and they handed me a sheet of paper and they said, okay, you need to record every single time you nurse and what side you're nursing on. And, you should nurse 15 minutes on both sides. And that was a lot of stress, because literally and that's all I was focusing on. Like, I was not enjoying life in any way, shape, or form, because I was so panicked about, oh gosh, it's time to nurse again, and I need to write it down, and I need to, and he only nursed for 7 minutes on this side and not 15. And then finally with the second, I realized that was just crazy, and I didn't need to be so, what's the word, OCD about it.
Hung up on times. It's so much more intuition, and is the baby full, is the baby needing to just burp or move or we get so focused on time.
So with the second, I really was able to look for my baby's cues, as opposed to what the book said I have to do or what the hospital said I have to do. And I was we had so much more of an enjoyable experience in the beginning than with the first, because I was more relaxed and I gave myself a lot more grace than I did the first time around. And then I was able to really be in tune with what my baby needed. And it wasn't so much of what I was putting on the baby to need,
So. And we expect all children, I think you pointed out something important, is that all babies are different. All people are different. They're going to gain weight differently. They're going to nurse differently. I've had 4 children. They are all different. I have nursed 3 out of the 4. None of them were the same.
Yeah.
I mean, and I had twins and neither one of them nursed the same. I mean, it's completely important to keep that in mind. I will also say that if you experience struggles, if it hurts for an extended amount of time, that might be something to talk to your pediatric provider about. With Dawson, I experienced an issue where he only wanted to nurse on one side. So I actually saw a chiropractor. And the reason why is because he had like a nerve that was pinched in his neck from being in the womb with his sister. And so he just wanted to lay on one side. And once we fixed that, he was good to go. So
the chiropractor can be an amazing resource. I've seen it firsthand. We both use the chiropractor with our kids. I go to the chiropractor often, and you know, depending on how labor went, even if it was the most perfect labor, your baby came through a birth canal. The head had to squish, you know, they're in different positions, depending, you know, your body had to turn the baby maybe. And so anything like that can definitely make your, you know, spine a little out of whack. And sometimes that's all it takes is an adjustment. And don't think that adjustments at chiropractors on babies is like the snap, crackle, pop. That is so false. That's not what's happening. A lot of times it's just like pressure points. Very gentle. It's amazing. It's fantastic.
And definitely find a pediatric, someone who specializes in that, or has done many, you know, treats pregnant women and babies a lot. Dawson's chiropractor, it took 3 visits. Like you said, it didn't even really look like she was doing much, but he was a completely different kid. He slept better. He nursed better. He was happier. Things like that were immediate. I mean, it's something that I think that you have to have, again, an encouraging support system to say, hey, let's try this alternative instead of let's immediately grab a bottle and that's the end of it. Because once you start down the supplementation path, it is very hard because your baby, it's easier, 1, to drink from a bottle, 2, they feel more full. And so you just start this spiral once you start going down the path.
Speaking of the feel more full, pumping, in my opinion, is not an accurate measurement of how much you are making. You cannot nearly get as much milk by pumping that your baby can get by breastfeeding. So a lot of
is the worst indicator of your supply.
A lot of women think, oh, my supply is drying up. I'm not going to be able to keep breastfeeding. I'm not producing enough. So therefore, because I'm only pumping 2 ounces instead of 4 ounces and that I was doing in the beginning. And it's a lot of people stop nursing because of that. And it is not, your baby is so much more efficient than any pump, whether it's electrical or manual, can do. And you know, the thing that is frustrating is that your body is going to produce the amount of milk that your baby needs at that given time. So your milk changes. Your milk changes not only in the consistency. So like in the winter, for example, your milk is going to be thicker and, you know, ready for winter, for that cold weather. And if you live in a really hot climate and it's, you know, super hot all day, your milk is going to be a lot more watery because that's what your baby needs at that time. Milk changes from the milk that you produce in the morning versus the milk that you produce in the evening. That's how amazing your body is. So pumping is not a great indicator.
Incredible. A little more about how incredible your body is. Something that I did some time researching in my MPH in regard to infectious disease and breastfeeding is when your baby is sick, your body knows what your baby needs.
Yes.
Because of the way that the saliva transfers from your areolas and your nipple. Your body basically takes that and goes, oh, baby is sick. Baby is fighting this, XYZ. And your body can make basically the antibodies that your baby needs. That is the miracle of breastfeeding.
You've probably heard a breastfeeding mother, if you say like, oh, my baby's sick, we'll put some breast milk on it. Oh, my baby has a stuffy nose. oh, put some breast milk on it.
Yep.
You know, my baby has a cut, put some breast milk on it. Literally,
It's true.
I would pump not to feed my baby because I would just nurse her or him, but instead to have a little bit of a supply of breast milk so that I could use it for any other reasons. Yep, I was.
It's incredible. I mean, it is literally, truly, we all hear liquid gold, but it is. And, you know, there are organizations for people who can't, for whatever reason, breastfeed, where you can access breast milk. It is so important that they pay women for breast milk, for micro preemies and things. And they obviously test this breast milk, but there are breast milk banks across the country. Some states have them. I'm not sure that every state does, but definitely the super committed to breastfeeding areas have breast milk banks. It's an incredible life source. I mean, really, it is. Your baby needs.
You sound like a robot.
You know that breastfeeding is hard. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, you go.
You just all of a sudden started sounding like a robot again. So all of this to be said, though, we are definitely pro breastfeeding, but does that mean if you choose to bottle feed your baby, are we going to judge you? And the answer is absolutely no. Everybody has to make the choice that's right for them and for their families, which brings me to a point, because a lot of people turn to bottle feeding because you're just absolutely exhausted and you want a way for dad to be involved and for dad to be able to feed baby. And I mean, I'm the first to admit there was nights where I was like, oh, I do not want to get up tonight. Please figure it out. But my husband was able to support me in ways that made the feeding not be that hard on me, where he would go get the baby, bring baby to me, you know, get me my water, get whatever it was that I needed. And then when I was done feeding baby in the middle of the night, he would take baby. And if he or she wasn't ready to go back to sleep, you know, he would rock her, swing, you know, sing to her, whatever. And so I was still able to nurse, which usually only took me, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And then I was able to go back to sleep on those nights. So all told, I still got some relief, and I didn't have to turn to the bottle.
All right.
So anyways, we have probably talked your ear off and have so much more we could talk about in regards to breastfeeding, because this could be like an all-day event. But I have to get ready for church. And so do you have anything else you'd like to add, Crystal?
I don't want to sound like a robot, so I just want to say thanks for joining us, and we'll be back on Thursday.
That's right. So once again, we are the Birth Besties, and we're so glad that you guys were here, and we will see you Thursday. Bye.
Bye.
Happy Sunday.